Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I'll be sharing with you guys how to sew this beautiful mesh dress. If that's what you're here for, make sure you stay to the end of the video. Let's get started. So we are going to start with the front pattern or the front piece. You can decide to cut the two together, that's the front and the back, but this is a very tricky fabric, so you want to do it one after the other so one doesn't get longer than the other. So I went ahead to mark my starting point, and you can see that I'm using a pen to mark this so you guys can see, because if I use my chalk you will not see. So I went ahead to mark 2.5 inches for my neck depth, my neck width, and then I used 2 inches for my neck depth. Now this is a very stretchy material. It is stretchy on both sides, so you don't want to do too much. Although I eventually increase the width of the neck, but if you're aiming at making a turtleneck, please stick to 2.5 by 2, all right, unless you want it to be a little bit big. But for what I did, you can use 3 by 3. So I went ahead to mark my shoulder measurement, and then I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, just the same way you make your basic pattern. Okay, so I'm just using pen to mark it. I don't know if you can see clearly, but just manage, because I can't use chalk and I didn't have enough pattern to draft it. Okay, so after that we are going to mark our armhole line, which is your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. okay, and that's what I marked there. And then I'll also go ahead to make sure that it is on a straight line. We are marking my shoulder point at that point, and then I'm going to connect into a straight line. After connecting to a straight line, we are going to start imputing our body measurements, and before we do that, we are going to go ahead to curve our armhole line. Okay, so I'm taking my time to explain and to make this video as explanatory as possible. So for you to get your armhole curve, you know that the first step is to put your bust measurements on your chest line. All right, so that is what I went ahead to do, and I'll go ahead to divide my divide my armhole line into 2 to get the midpoint so we can create our armhole curve. Okay, I came in by half an inch, and I'm going to just connect all the points together as we always do when drafting our basic bodice. So I believe you know how to do all this. Now after doing that, I'm going to go ahead to mark my waist point on my waistline. That is the measurement we'll be using. We are not needing any under bust and all of that. Okay, so we just go ahead to mark your waist line, which is 17, I think it should be 17 or 18 inches, right? Okay, I think it's 18 inches. I went ahead to mark my waistline, and I will go ahead to put my waist divided by 4. We are not adding any allowance to this. All right, remember that this fabric is very stretchy, super stretchy on both sides, so you don't need to add any allowance. The stretchiness alone is enough for you to sew and all of that, and we are not adding any zip. Now after marking the waistline, I came down from the waistline by 9 inches for our hip line. Okay, you can do 9 or 10 inches. Okay, you guys know how this one works. Now I don't do explain too much. And after doing that, I went ahead to mark my hip measurements divided by 4. Now I had to take this to the floor so you guys can see, because my table wasn't showing and it wasn't long enough, right? So I went ahead to measure the full length of the dress, which is 57, and I eventually marked 59 plus allowance. All right, so that is what I went ahead to mark. Please make sure your fabric is as stable as possible. If possible, you can use pins to hold it down, because this fabric is very tricky and it's stressful to work with, so just take your time when doing this. All right, so I'll go ahead to cut the parts which I do not need, and that's just what I'm doing here. After cutting that, we're going to go ahead to join our points or our measurements together, like our measurement for the bust, the hip, the waist, and all of that. Okay, and because this is pen I'm using, you obviously not going to be seeing it very well. Okay, so just take your time, but I believe you understand what I did here. So I went ahead to join from the bust to the waist and from the waist to the hip, and now the dress is like an A line on the floor, like the length now is looking like an A line here. So from the hip line, I came down a little by like 6 inches. Let's say I came down to like the knee line before I started making it like an A line. Okay, but on the hem I took 20 inches. That is how wide I want the floor or the hem, or how wide I want the mermaid whatever to look like. However you want yours, you can do yours as big as you want, but this is what I want. I don't know if you understand. So on the hip line, I came down by like 5 inches or so, and then that's 5 inches straight. Then from there I'll just mark a slant line meeting the end. So in all I'm trying to say is you can start your you can start your mermaid slant from the knee line. Don't start it from the hip line, okay? So that's what I'm just trying to explain. I don't know if that is understood. So after doing that, I went ahead to place my back fabric and also cut the back fabric or the back piece exactly how I cut the front. The only difference is the neck. Okay, the neck depth I came down by just 1 inch for the back. Okay, so I don't know if this version of is just so confusing, but I believe once you're watching what I'm doing, you understand. So that's what I'm just showing you guys, and then we'll head over to our table again. So I will need to cut the sleeve. So for you to make sure that you're getting the accurate sleeve, you're going to measure the armhole we have here, and we're going to use the armhole measurement to cut our sleeve. So I went ahead to fold my fabric into two, that's into four for the two sleeves. Right now, that's why I said, because your this in one or cut your material one, cut for one and then place on top, because I eventually ended up having one being bigger than the other one. Okay, so after doing that, I'm just going to measure what I have on the armhole to be sure that is enough for what we have on the armhole on the dress. So it's always better you have more than less. All right, so after doing that, I'll just go ahead to cut my sleeve. So mind you, just a normal straight sleeve, and yeah, and that's what I just did. After doing that, I will also go ahead to measure again to be sure that my armhole curve is matching up with the armhole curve on the dress. But mine is a little bigger, and it's always better like that. And if you check very well, you can see that the one inside is bigger. That's why I said cut your fabric one by one, because this material can be something else, okay? But there is no big deal, just go ahead and trim off. Now we're going to just cut out the wrap design on the waist. So I think I did 34 by 20 or 24, but this is dependent on what you want. Okay, if you want yours to be more full or bigger than this, just go ahead and do it. And if you're bigger, just make something that is big enough. It's better you have excess, and then you can always trim off. So I'm just going to create a twist like this by just, you know how you try to do a twist, or when you're making hair, that kind of twist. That is what I just did, and it's a very simple thing to do. So this is the twist you're going to do, and we are going to attach this to the sleeve. But before we do that, I'll go ahead to cut the piping, what we are going to use to pipe the neckline of the dress. Okay, so I went ahead to fold the material in a bias form. Always do that when you're trying to pipe a round edge. Make sure you're cutting on bias. Okay, so this is what I have. I'm just going to go ahead to cut my bias rope, which is for the neckline. All right, we're going to use it to pipe the neckline of the dress, and that's what I'm just now I'm going to bring my patterns to the table again. Now we need to attach that twist on the waistline. Now this is dependent on how you want it to be. You can decide to start from the waist, like the actual waistline. You can decide to start from maybe above your waist. You can as well decide to start below your waistline. Okay, so it depends on what you want. But for the one I did, for the sake of this tutorial, I started like 1 inch above my waistline, because the client wanted it to, go up a little, just to cover small fat on the belly. But it doesn't entirely cover up any fat, but just for the design. Okay, so it just depends on what you want. You can always be creative with it. Make sure that the twist is in the center of the dress, like it's in the middle. All right, so you don't have your twist or your design looking like it's going to one side. All right, so after placing it on the center, you're just going to go ahead to just arrange how you want it. If you want it to be more wider, like, or more longer on the width side, you can just do that. If you want it to be together, like you don't want it to be big, I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, but at this point you're free to be creative with whatever you want to do. Okay, so you can, like I said, you can always start probably from your waist, below your waist, or above your waist to start placing it. And after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to pin. As you're placing your pinning, make sure you stretch out, because this material is stretchy. You might have some excesses under, so make sure you stretch it out to be sure that it is flat and straight. Okay, now we are going to go ahead to pin all of it down. Now a simple trick for you to get this accurately is, when you're done clean on one side, you can measure what you have there, so you can get the same measurement on the other side. Like this, I have 8 inches. I make sure that the other side is also 8 inches, so you don't have one side looking wider than the other. And I'll go ahead to stitch on it. After stitching, I'll also go ahead to trim out the excess. It's always better you stitch first before you trim out, so your pin might disappoint you, so it's always better you stitch. So after doing that, I'll just go ahead to trim out all of this, and we are going to continue to the next procedure. Now we are going to start joining the front and the back, and we're going to join the shoulder of the front and the back. Okay, I'm just showing you guys that I've gone ahead to stitch the side, and you can go ahead to unpin at this point because you need to sew, and you don't want your machine needle to break because there is pin around the edges. You can go ahead to unpin and all of that, and after unpinning, we are going to go ahead to sew the shoulder of the back to the shoulder of the front. Also make sure you pin. Please always make sure you're pinning. This material is a whole lot of work and need patience while working with it, so you need to be very careful with whatever you're doing. You don't want your fabric to be shifting to one side. Okay, so you go ahead and align the shoulder, and I'm going to stitch it right now. So I head over to the sewing machine and I started attaching my shoulder by half an inch. So always make sure you top stitch, and please be very patient with this. Your machine might not sew it well, but make sure you try as much as you can. Maybe you can use your manual, but luckily for me, my industrial machine was sewing it. And after doing that, I'm going to just add my sleeve at once. Okay, I just like to, when I'm joining the side, I'm joining both the sleeve and all of that. Okay, so before we do any other thing, after joining the shoulder, I'm going to attach the sleeve to the dress, and that's what I'll just go ahead to do. So you guys just watch, and yeah. So remember I said I eventually used 3 by 3 inches for my neck width, okay, because I realized that it was too small for the head to enter, so I had to reshape the neckline to be a little bigger, okay. But if you want to use it, if you want a turtleneck, go ahead to use the exact measurements that you used in the beginning. That will give you a perfect turtleneck for this dress. So I'll go ahead to pipe the neckline now, so just watch and enjoy. So this is how it looks after piping. I didn't realize that my camera wasn't showing it so well, but just manage. And after doing that, I'll go ahead to join my sides now. Alright, remember I also folded the sleeve. Also go ahead to do that, and then I'll just join the two sides together. I also went ahead to hem the dress, and yeah, you can go ahead to finish it up and then weave the inside of the dress. And that's all. So we've come to the end of today's tutorial. If you stayed to this end, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment in the comment section. And thank you so much for watching to this end.